Dear students, welcome to our session today for course English 101, New Language Leader, Level 1, First Semester, Unit number 6, Lesson number 4, Study and Writing Skills. Objectives of our today are, by the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify critical thinking, analyze an article for a competition, revise paragraph and sentence structure, and write an article about their country. Now, think about these questions. What does critical thinking mean? How is it useful in reading? Think about it in 1 minute. Okay, dear students, so critical thinking means asking questions about what you see, hear, or read. And how is it useful in reading? Critical thinking can help you understand reading text better. Now, look at these 6 questions. Which of these questions are examples of critical thinking? Read the questions carefully and try to identify which ones are critical thinking questions. Okay, dear students, so Which ones are critical thinking questions? Number 2, is it true that most people will live long life in the future? Also, number 3, why do many people prefer to live with their parents after they get married? And number 5, how do we know that the gap between parents and children will increase? Now, read the lecture about critical thinking and then answer the following questions. Let's read the lecture together. Janet Foster. Good morning, everyone. All. Good morning. Janet Foster. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. My name is Janet Foster, and I work in the Learning Resources Center. I've been at Harvard University for 5 years, but this is my first visit to the English language department, so I'm very pleased to be here. As you know, our topic today is critical thinking. It is very important when you study at this level to have an idea about critical thinking. What does it mean exactly? How does it help you understand reading text better? This morning, I'll explain some important ideas about critical thinking, and I'll explain how critical thinking can help you as a language learner. If you have any questions, I'll deal with them at the end of this lecture if that's convenient. Now, I'm sure we all know what we mean by thinking, but what about the word critical? Maybe critical sounds rather unfriendly to you, like saying someone or something is bad or wrong. But when we talk about critical thinking, we don't just mean critical in this rather negative sense. It's true, we are talking about an attitude or a way of looking at the world, but it's not a negative attitude. Instead, critical thinking means that we have a questioning attitude towards things. We ask questions about things, but these questions are not questioning about facts. Let me give you an example. If I ask, what's the biggest continent in the world? Maybe you know the answer already, or simply you can check quickly on the internet. So, this isn't the kind of question we ask when we do critical thinking. Instead, in critical thinking, we ask about the reasons for something, or we try to judge something to form an opinion about it, to decide if it's good or bad. So, we ask questions like, why is he or she saying that? What's the reason for that? Is that a good idea? These are critical thinking questions. How can this critical thinking help us learn a language? Well, let's think about reading text for a minute. If you ask questions about the text while you are reading, you'll probably understand the text better. So, critical thinking can help you to improve your reading comprehension. One question you can always ask is, why is the writer writing this text? What's the writer's aim? Look for reasons why the writer wrote that text. Is the writer just giving you some information, or trying to persuade you that his or her ideas are good? Another question you can ask when you read is, how do I know that what I'm reading is true? To do this, you must look for evidence or proof. If the writer makes a point, So see if he or she gives evidence to support that point. If someone gives us evidence, for example, some data, then that makes the argument stronger. If there is evidence, it's more difficult for us to say, your ideas are wrong. Finally, another question that you can ask is, what is the relationship between the ideas in the text? Maybe this is a little difficult to understand, but for example, ask yourself, is the text describing a problem and giving a solution to that problem? Or is the text comparing and contrasting two things, looking at similarities and differences? Or again, is the text looking at causes and effects, the reason why something happens, and the results of that? If we understand these relationships between different parts of the text, we can understand the whole text a lot better. So, as I've said, critical thinking in its simplest form is about asking questions, and don't forget to. Critical thinking doesn't mean thinking only by yourself. You can work with other students and discuss these things together. Critical thinking can be a group activity. So what I'd like to do now is now look at the text again for about 10 minutes. We'll move the 3 slides in a row. Okay, dear students, now let's think about these two questions. Number one, according to the text, what does critical thinking mean? Question two, name three things you can look for in a text that to help you understand reading text better. Think about this question in 1 minute. Okay, so answer for question number one. Critical thinking means that we have a questioning attitude toward things. Question two. Number one, look for reasons why the writer wrote the text. Was it to provide information or to persuade you of something? Question two, or point two, look for evidence. For example, data. This makes an argument stronger. Point three, look for relationships between different ideas in the text. Relationships between different parts of the text. For example, problem and solution or cause and effect. Now, what does judging reliability mean? Judging reliability means to ask questions about where information comes from, to know if it is true or reliable. Now, which of these sources of information do you trust more? Put them in order from 1 to 5. Note that number 1 means the most reliable source. Look at these 5 sources and think about them in 1 minute. Okay, let's look at the correct order for these sources. Number 1, a government website. Number 2, a major national news channel. Number 3, something your parents tell you. Number 4, a blog. Number 5, a web page from 2002. Now, look at these facts. How do you know they are true? Number 1, the population of the Kingdom of Bahrain was nearly 500,000 in 1999. Number 2, people cannot live without fresh air and clean water. We can say for number 1, from official census data. Number 2, from science and broad human experience. Now, how can you prove your idea or point of view? Think about this question. So, what is or which is the sentence that proved the writer's idea or point of view in this paragraph? Let's look at the answer. So the sentence which shows the writer's idea or point of view is, a number of studies over many years have shown this. These studies took place in several countries around the world with very similar results. Now think about this question. How can you develop your self-awareness? We can develop our self-awareness by asking questions about yourself, the reasons why you do things, and the results of your actions. Now, how can we develop our self-awareness? Write 3 questions you can ask yourself to develop self-awareness. Think about 3 questions in 1 minute. Okay, dear students, let's say thank you for your participation and your comments. تركي عبد الله يوسف، سيد مصطفى موسى، إبراهيم أمين خليفة، عمر وائل إبراهيم، أحمد عيسى محمد، سيد صادق جعفر، عمر مجدي، محمد عيسى محمد، عبد الله محمد شمس، عبد الله خان محمد، إبراهيم خليفة، حسين علي حسين، يوسف فيصل أحمد، حسين علي كاظم، علي علاء عبد النبي، محمد فاضل عباس، أحمد ناصر أحمد، تميم خالد، خالد نواف، علي مختار، مصطفى موسى، حسن علي ميرزا، أحمد ناصر أحمد، علي عبد الله، ساجد، محمد محمود, Sayyid Hadi, and Sufyan Mansour. Then thank you all for your attention. Now let's look at some possible answers, or rather questions to develop your awareness. First question, why am I doing this? Question 2, what do I want to get from this? Question 3, what did I learn from that experience? Question 4, how can I do that better in the future? Now, dear students, that is the end of our session today. We'd like to thank you all for your attention, your participation, and your great comments. Click on the link for the form. Try to do it, and we'll see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.